This week, without as much fanfare as I would have thought in actual fact, and receiving scant mainstream media attention in general, the National Party released its agricultural policy. Now, national and agriculture, or national and farming, the National Party and farming go together like a horse and marriage, or horse and carriage, sorry. Horse and carriage. They are fundamentally the same, and the National Party has always been regarded as the party of farmers, or at least has the rural or pastoral concerns most prominent, and in terms of its response and in terms of its policy. But they, if they are going to be the next government, and the polls would suggest that they could fairly confident about that, then the National Party's agricultural policy has become very important. And I imagine when it was released, they knew that they had a good chance of being in power. And I imagine, therefore, they weren't stupid about putting together their primary sector growth plan. To talk to us about that and what it means for rural and horticultural, agricultural, pastoral New Zealand, we're joined by the National Party's agricultural spokesperson, Todd McClay. Todd, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on.
Thanks so much, Michael. Great to be on.
Just before we get on to this, I had Tanya Tapsell on a couple of weeks ago, in actual fact.
Yeah.
God, wouldn't you like her in the National Party still? Although I suppose she's doing a great job.
Look, she's doing an amazing job, and she is uniting people in Rotorua because she's getting on, roll the sleeves up and doing the job, right, doing the business. She's making changes that I have advocated for others in the community, particularly around homelessness and what the government's done to Rotorua. She's getting on and making those changes, and it just shows that when you have a mayor that's in touch with the concerns of local people and they're willing to do the job rather than put out press releases and make excuses, as we see with the Labor government, things can be done. So she's amazing, and you're right, we'd probably love her back in the National Party, but Rotorua needs her more as mayor at the moment, actually, and so I'm looking forward, if re-elected, to working closely with her.
Yeah, no, and you two have a good partnership. There's no question about that. You'll enjoy each other's company, I hope. Yesterday, Todd, I went to a regional council meeting, and we are, along with all other regional councils in New Zealand, responsible for implementing, as you'll be aware, the National Policy Statement on Freshwater Management and its corollary, this sort of amendment called Te Mana o Te Wai, which introduces a spiritual element, spooky as that might sound, into water management in this country. It came in 2022, I think, the latter, but it's become very important, and it started to skew policy making in this area. Can I just ask, on that basis, and there'll be a lot of farmers currently who are going, oh my God, what does this mean for us? Because for our lot, it means that they're going to have to live minimum flows, not for ecological reasons, but for cultural and spiritual reasons of water, and therefore deny irrigation. What's your view on that particular issue?
Yeah, look, it's not working well at all. I don't think it's serving anybody well, be it people who live in towns and cities who need, water coming through their taps, and the councils are finding it hard to work out what Te Mana o Te Wai means from industry to business. And by the way, I get a lot of people, water ecologists, environmentalists, who are not happy with it and the outcomes either. It was brought in by us many years ago in government, and the concept of itself of thinking about water and its use and importance in more than just economic terms is a sound one. It's not a bad one, but where it's morphed to, how it's been changed, and what the current Labor Green government have allowed it to do really has created so much uncertainty that councils don't know whether they should be issuing consents. So in the case they do, they're shorter, costs going on everybody without any clear understanding of what the outcome should be. So you mentioned our document last week that Christopher Lutz and I released down in Canterbury, which is, around primary sector growth. In that, we've recognised that the concept around the treatment of water in Te Mana o Te Wai is an important one, but that it's not working. And as part of our RMA reform, we're going to fix it so that the interests of all water users are balanced.
It's because at the moment, Todd, the water's got primacy, the spiritual value of the water has got primacy over people being able to use it. And then the thing that really irritates me is that fish are more important, particularly trout, and introduced exotic species than people. That just seems crazy to me.
Yeah, it is a little bit. So I've put out a hunting and fishing policy here because we've created a new portfolio. So an elected national-led government will have a Minister for Recreational Hunting and Fishing for the first time. I hold that portfolio at the moment. And just around the fishing, we said we want to balance that out. Actually, you think about trout fishermen, but it's the same with hunting of game animals, right? People do it for enjoyment, but actually a lot of people provide food to their families. And as with everything, you've got to, balance things out. And so we've said in the case of trout and salmon, they will be a valued introduced species, and so we'll go back and change the law so that they sort of have rights as well, and as far as we shouldn't have people trying to exterminate them. But coming back to what you said about the water, ultimately, nobody owns water in New Zealand. People have rights and obligations around it, and actually we want to make sure that all water users, all New Zealanders, their interests are recognised equally. Look, I don't know about the spirit of water, but ultimately we have more water in New Zealand per capita than almost any country of the world. We need to find better ways to manage it, to store it, and to use it. There is enough for everybody if we start doing that. And the policy I announced last week is a big step in that direction. As an example, if you want to store water on land, on farmland, for the purpose of irrigation schemes and so on, instead of having to go off and get a consent and take 6 or 7 or 8 years, it will become a permitted activity, because the way we get better outcomes is to store water at high flow periods, use it in low flow periods, and you get to produce more, but at the same time you get better outcomes for rivers and streams. And so we're going to be really sensible about this.
Yes, I'm looking at your bullet point here. It says make water storage on farmland a permitted activity. Now that, by introducing a national environmental standard for water storage, farmers will not have to obtain a resource consent to build larger scale water storage schemes on land. In one part that would be a good thing, but I take it that you would still have a national policy statement on freshwater management, that will set basic minimum criteria?
Yeah, we're going to be releasing our water policy with the environment policy when that comes out soon, so there'll be more clarity there. But actually, one of the challenges around the NPSs is it creates uncertainty and burden for councils. Each council has to go and work out what it means and what to do about it. Yep. And then sometimes very, very long delays. There's costs on councils that then get passed on. So we're looking at how we can not streamline that process, but actually focus on the outcomes, how we can get better outcomes rather than what David Parker has done, which has virtually said we're going to make it impossible for anybody when it comes to water almost anywhere in the country. Now, it's not a one-size-fits-all, and a lot of the policy I've announced so far for agriculture, it's about recognising that local communities have a say about, what should happen there, and catchment approach often will work better. And, not to defend councils, but I think probably in the end, central government has made it far too hard for them, extremely bureaucratic, and we're not getting the outcomes that we want. And so, yes, you would still need a consent to take water, but actually there are sensible ways to do that, particularly where irrigation schemes combine groups of farmers or other users together rather than going at it individually. And in many cases at the moment, the farmers are out there by themselves trying to work out what to do, because if you want a group irrigation scheme, which is smarter and better, you either, won't get a consent, or if you do, the consent is for a very short period of time, which makes it unaffordable. So we're going to actually work away at all of those things and get it right so we can get better outcomes for water, but also produce the food that we need to feed New Zealanders and to sell to the world to pay off this great big debt that the Labor government has run up.
All right. Now, you've also been talking about farm plans, and you compliment, Todd, in your agricultural policy, farmers for having farm plans. You say there's about 3,000 farm plans that have been completed already. Will it be compulsory for every farmer in New Zealand to have a farm plan?
Well, actually, I've had a look. There's probably about 7,000 or 8,000 now. That was statistics that have sort of just been updated. And so, look, a role for plans is important, right? But the challenge you've got at the moment, there are so many of them. It takes so long. You have to hire consultants, and it costs a lot of money. And look, we have a view that that's not necessarily. Focus on the outcomes, collect the information that's needed, do it once. So I'd like to see a system where farmers put together their farm plan. They largely can do it themselves. It provides information to councils and central government that they require, and then they can get on and they can farm. But that's not the case at the moment. And for many farmers or growers, the concern is the uncertainty. We fill out this farm plan, we're going to be asked for more, we pay lots and lots of money, it's going to sit there and not do anything, and then there'll be more and more rules. Well, you do need rules, in agriculture and regulations, but we want fewer of them, focus on the outcome, and better ones that don't cost too much. And so, look, we'll engage very, very widely with the rural community on exactly the role that farm plans should play. There is a role for them. They are important. But at the moment, Fonterra's asking for one, the regional council's asking for one, and the local council's involved, and MPI want the information, and it's just a bit of a pig's ear. It comes back to one of our other policies. The government, local and central, can only ask farmers for information once. After that, it's up to us to work out how to use it. And so a farm plan should not be arduous or onerous. It shouldn't be expensive. A farmer should be able to, put it together himself and then stick with it, get on and do it.